extensive summary of what happened from the cross to the throne by E.W. Kenyon. Introduction: The Mystery of Redemption. E.W. Kenyon opens What Happened from the Cross to the Throne by explaining that many Christians focus only on Jesus' crucifixion, but fail to understand the full scope of what took place spiritually between his death and resurrection. This book seeks to unveil the mysteries of Christ's redemptive work, not just on the cross, but in his descent into hell, victory over Satan, and ultimate enthronement in heaven. Kenyon emphasizes that understanding these truths will revolutionize a believer's faith, empowering them to walk in victory, authority, and divine righteousness. Key takeaways: Jesus' work of redemption was more than physical suffering. It was a spiritual conquest. Between the cross and the throne, Jesus defeated Satan and reclaimed authority for humanity. Believers must understand this victory to fully experience their new identity in Christ. Chapter 1: The Problem of Sin and the Need for Redemption. Kenyon begins by explaining that Adam's sin in the Garden of Eden was not just an act of disobedience, but a legal transaction that transferred authority over the earth to Satan. This act resulted in spiritual death and separation from God. Humanity's slavery to sin and Satan's dominion. A legal barrier preventing direct fellowship between God and man. To restore what was lost, a perfect sacrifice was required, someone who was fully human yet without sin. Jesus, the last Adam, 1 Corinthians 15:45, came to fulfill this role. Key takeaways: sin was not just a moral issue, but a legal transference of authority to Satan. Jesus came as the second Adam to restore what was lost. Redemption required a sinless substitute to pay humanity's debt. Chapter 2: Jesus as the sin-bearer. Kenyon explains that on the cross, Jesus did more than suffer physically. He became sin itself, 2 Corinthians 5:21. This was a crucial aspect of redemption. God poured out his wrath on Jesus, not because of his own sin, but because he took on the sins of the world. For the first time, Jesus experienced separation from the Father. This was necessary for him to legally pay the penalty of sin. Kenyon argues that many believers fail to grasp this legal substitutionary act, which is why they still live in guilt and condemnation instead of righteousness. Key takeaways: Jesus did not just suffer for sin, he became sin itself. For the first time, he was spiritually separated from the Father. His suffering was not just physical, but spiritual, to fully pay humanity's debt. Chapter 3: The Descent into Hell. This is one of Kenyon's most controversial and powerful revelations. He teaches that Jesus did not go straight to heaven after his death, but descended into hell. What happened in hell? Jesus suffered the full punishment for sin in our place. Satan thought he had won, but Jesus was actually fulfilling divine justice. At the appointed time, the Father declared him justified, and he conquered Satan. Kenyon references Ephesians 4:9-10 and Colossians 2:15, which describe Jesus descending into the lower parts of the earth and disarming principalities. Key takeaways: Jesus' victory over Satan was won in the spiritual realm before his resurrection. He legally paid sin's full penalty in hell. When God declared him justified, he stripped Satan of his authority. Chapter 4: The Defeat of Satan. Kenyon explains that Satan held legal rights over humanity due to Adam's sin, but Jesus legally reversed this transaction through his sacrifice. How Jesus defeated Satan: he took the full punishment for sin, fulfilling divine justice. Once the penalty was paid, Satan had no legal right to hold him. Jesus took back the keys of hell and death. Revelation 1:18. This chapter is one of the most victorious moments in the book. Jesus did not just suffer, he overcame. Key takeaways: Satan's dominion over humanity was legally revoked. Jesus took back the authority Adam lost in Eden. Believers now share in this victory and authority. Chapter 5. The Resurrection, the proof of victory. Kenyon teaches that Jesus' resurrection was the final evidence that redemption was complete. Had Jesus remained in the grave, his sacrifice would have been incomplete. The resurrection was God's declaration that the price had been fully paid. Jesus now stood as the firstborn of a new creation. Colossians 1:18. Key takeaways. The resurrection is the receipt of our justification. Jesus' victory over death means believers will never be held captive by sin. He became the firstborn of a new race of redeemed people. Chapter 6. The Ascension and Enthronement. Kenyon explains that Jesus did not just rise from the dead, he ascended and took his place on the throne. The significance of Jesus' enthronement: he is seated at the right hand of the Father, interceding for us. He has been given all authority in heaven and earth. Matthew 28:18. We are now seated with him in heavenly places. Ephesians 2:6. Kenyon emphasizes that many believers live as if they are still defeated when, in reality, they share in Christ's victory. Key takeaways: Jesus reigns as King, and we reign with him. Our authority as believers comes from his enthronement. We are no longer slaves to sin, fear, or the devil. Final chapter: living in the reality of redemption. Kenyon concludes by urging believers to stop living in defeat and start walking in the full reality of their redemption. How to live in Christ's victory. Renew your mind with the truth of your authority in Christ. Stop begging God for what he has already given you. Take it by faith. Speak and act as a redeemed, victorious believer. He warns that many Christians still live under guilt, fear, and bondage because they do not understand the power of what Jesus accomplished. Key takeaways: live as one who has already won, not as one who is trying to win. Satan has no legal right over a believer who knows their authority. Faith in Jesus' finished work activates kingdom power in daily life. Final thoughts: understanding the full work of redemption. What Happened from the Cross to the Throne is a revelatory book that unveils the full scope of Christ's redemptive work. Many believers focus only on the cross without understanding what happened between death and resurrection. Jesus did not just die, he descended into hell, defeated Satan, and rose in victory. His enthronement guarantees that we reign with him now, not just in eternity. Understanding these truths transforms believers from victims to victorious conquerors. Subscribe to the Christian Library for more faith-building audiobook summaries. Blast off.